oblivious to Nick's face in her chest. I shook my head and turned to Silas. I need to go soon. I felt pulled. I wanted to talk to Gage, but I knew it wouldn't happen tonight. Not here. And the more I sat, the deeper my unease grew, a nagging feeling in my stomach that I shouldn't be here. Silas didn't pull his eyes off the server walking away as he responded,
"Soon."
I slumped back in the seat and tried to put my mind anywhere else. Some girls were up dancing, and some were rubbing on other men. Some were naked, some wore underwear, but none were in clothes. I shouldn't be here. The big-boobed brunette returned, leaning suggestively into each man as she handed off his drink. Nick hooked his arm around her, pulling her back onto his lap before she could walk away.
"Have you sampled the new goods?"
He asked Gage and Silas. Maybe I was included, but I doubted it. He lifted the necklace from her cleavage and flicked through the charms dangling from the end.
"The star, right?"
He asked her, and she nodded. As Nick unscrewed the charm, she lifted her hand flat, and he poured white powder onto the back of it, between her thumb and pointer finger. She brought it up to his nose, and he inhaled sharply. Gage was leaned back on the sofa, turned away from me, watching his uncle snort more off the girl's chest. Nick sat up.
"It's gotta be the finest shit we've ever copped."
He ran his hand up and down the girl's waist, then patted her hip and pointed to Silas.
"Go give him some."
She sat on Silas's lap, and I scooted myself away, snakes coiling in my stomach, knotting into a venomous ball of disgust. It wasn't even her I was disgusted with. The distance in her gaze made it clear she was just doing her job. This place and these people disgusted me. Silas spread out the coke on her cleavage and buried his face as he inhaled. Nick nodded to Gage, and she moved to him, straddling his lap, and I nearly threw up. I didn't want to see this. I never wanted to think of Gage like this because, no matter what the excuse, this image would forever be burned into my brain, and I couldn't unsee it or forget it. She braced her hands on either side of his shoulders as she cooed, "How do you want it?" His eyes connected with hers, and he took the charm from Silas and grabbed one of her hands, tipping some out onto the space between her thumb and finger. She moved her hand to his nose, and he breathed in, long and deep. The knots in my stomach were unbearably tight, but they tore painfully as he moved her hand to his mouth and sucked off the residue. She trailed her hand down his neck and rested it on his low stomach as he let his head fall back, closing his eyes as the high took over. She turned to Nick, but inclined her head to me. "What about her?" "No." I didn't give him the chance to answer. "I don't do that." I couldn't hide the contempt in my voice. I wanted to shout at Gage, see how easily I said no. Everything in me was boiling and burning. Nick's gaze glazed over as he looked at me.
"Fine."
He turned to Gage, who still had the girl on his lap, and nudged his shoulder.
"I thought you said she was fun,"
he asked with a low rumble of a laugh that reminded me of Gage's. I couldn't see his face as he responded since he was turned away from me, but his voice sounded light, teasing.
"I also said she wasn't worth the trouble. She takes a lot of work."
His hands slid around the girl's waist in front of him. A part of me was still hoping that he was acting, that this was all a cover for him. But either way, I couldn't sit here and listen. And really, no matter what we meant to each other, I wouldn't let a person say that stuff about me. I stood and faced Nick. "Whatever. I'm not here to make friends or have fun. We worked out what I came for. I'm leaving now." Nick's slick smile was almost a sneer as he said, "Bye." He saluted me with 2 fingers to his forehead. I glanced over the others, but Gage didn't even bother pulling his eyes off the boobs in front of him. Silas stood up and followed me. He stopped at the door and pointed to the main club.
"Go out the front. They can get you a cab. Here."
He handed me a couple of 20s.
"I'll see you Sunday morning. We'll talk and start training. Stay low till then."
He turned away, going back to Nick.